MMA True Believers. I am Jason BURGOS for Sherdog.com, and today I have a unique opportunity. For years, I've wanted to talk to a matchmaker and or a talent relations head in a major promotion. And today I get both in the man booking the fights and finding the talent for Legacy Fighting Alliance, and that is the organization's vice president and head of talent relations, Mr. Mark Bieri. Mark, thank you so much for the time and helping me in this bucket list moment.
Hey, happy to be a part of
it. Now, so before we get into your various duties for LFA, I want to learn about you and your journey into mixed martial arts and this industry in general. From what Ryan Blemons tells me, it's a rich history dating back to the 90s, Las Vegas, you're there now. I want to know that journey up until today and why he says you are like the 3-6 Mafia song, most known unknown.
Uh-oh. That's quite a setup right there. Yeah, it's a story I've kind of heard throughout the industry, but, I saw UFC 1, UFC 2, and, it's kind of Royce Gracie is what really started it, where I saw jiu-jitsu. I'd always liked martial arts. I grew up as a young kid in the 80s, and, I was a ninja every weekend. And then, yeah, the early 90s hit, and I saw, martial arts for real, I guess, of what it was. But yeah, it was the Royce Gracie, seeing the UFC that kind of had an interest that was there, and that's what really sparked it. And then as soon as I was old enough to, I traveled out to Las Vegas on a spring break and trained some jiu-jitsu, and went home and graduated high school and packed up and moved here, and the rest has kind of been history.
How do you, so how does your path end up getting you into the sport? Like, who do you meet? What are you doing? Because you have these unique stories in all kinds of industries. You started off doing this, and then you made your way here, and then you went up this way. Like, how did you even get your foot and your feet wet in particular, like, mixed martial arts? What was, like, your first kind of jobs in the sport?
Sure. Yeah, originally, I trained under John Lewis, and, he was kind of a pioneer in not only the jiu-jitsu scene, kind of one of the Dirty Dozen, one of the first, American black belts. And then he started a promotion with some partners, the World Fighting Alliance, the WFA. And that was promoter license number 2. Promoter license number 1 in Nevada was Zuffa. So promoter license 2 was WFA. And I started working with him. I just kind of really started as a, production assistant, really, which is a nice, a nice tag on really a gopher. I ran around and did whatever and did it. And that's kind of what started. And WFA, kind of came and went like a lot of promotions do. And I did some side, jobs for some other promotions, and then kind of pushed away until some of the original guys with the WFA started up RFA. And that was in 2012. So I'd had a good couple of years where I was just away. I mean, my involvement was watching fights with the buddies and training jiu-jitsu. That was about it. And then the sport had grown. So in 2012, we got kind of back on track, and that road led to what is now, as we sit here, the LFA.
One key element of your job is scouting and finding talent. Tell me about that process for you. How many staff members do you have working under you in this pursuit? How much is it going to regional events and seeing talent live? How much is it just straight watching video? And how much of it is just taking recommendations from sources you really trust?
Sure. As a team, I don't have anyone like specifically assigned to me to help that. But as a team, we're always talking. So you mentioned Ryan earlier. He's a great resource. He's always, in the media side, always talking to guys, seeing, what's going on. And Ed and Sven, my partners, have, decades of experience in the game. So between that and, other staff that say, hey, I went to this fight, this kid got a great knockout, whatever, it just kind of builds. But as far as going to shows, here in Southern Nevada, it's really the UFC or amateur shows. So to see the up and coming, pro, I have to rely a lot on, YouTube and other sources to kind of see and talk. But really what it comes down to, a great resource is coaches that are, proven in the game, some of the notable coaches, Montoya, Crouch, Rufus, calls you and says, hey, I got this new kid, check him out. You gotta lean on that pretty good.
Yep.
And our fighters, a lot of our next talent kids were the cornermen for the kid that won and went to the UFC. And then they're like, hey, I'm gone. Check out my buddy. Yeah. So for the longest winded answer ever there, yeah, it's a little bit of everything. But a great resource is actually the fighters that fight and compete for us to go, hey, this is the kid that got me ready for this fight. He's going to be the next big thing. And most of the kids, that's the great thing about such a humble sport, is most of the guys are there to tell you, who's next instead of all about them.
And I'm sure this isn't something that you learn overnight. Like, I'd love to do something like this, but I can't do it. Like, how many years did it take you really to develop that eye and that sense and that gut instinct? And did you have to go through bad recommendations and find out, oh yeah, this guy's total bullshit, I can't really believe them? Like, how long does it really take to kind of groom that ability that you can trust in, and then an organization can then trust in you to make the right decisions?
Sure. My partners give me a lot of freedom, which is great, and it's freedom to kick butt, and it's freedom also to, when you make a mistake, it falls on us. So, that helps, where I do kind of have that, trial and error. And it certainly is with anything you're working on, it's trial and error. There's kids that I thought were going to be the next big thing and didn't make it, and vice versa. Kids that quietly came up and surprised everyone. So for me, there's not a direct formula. I mean, I'm a martial artist. When people ask, when you're in Las Vegas, you don't really tell people you train, because then they're going to tell you their long story about how they, want to fight by a bike rack in, 1989. So I tell people I'm a martial artist, and it helps. I mean, I wasn't a professional fighter, but I've trained all aspects of this for, a while. So when I am watching a fight, I mean, I guess I can tell my BS detector is going to be a little higher if someone says, I'm the man, look what I can do, and I watch. I mean, you can know, but yeah. Training helps, but I think it's just experience, time in the game, kind of with anything, you just kind of learn and grow from experience in it.
Are there certain things you look for in a fighter when you go through the video, when you get the recommendation, when you really start evaluating, do you want an action-packed fighter? Because in the end, you have to help put on a TV show that wants fans to come back every time there's an event. Do you want to talent that have upside and they can smooth out the rough edges under LFA? Or are you open pretty much to anyone that is a skilled fighter, even veterans with a lot of experience, all comers?
At our level, it's really, I'm not trying to take the easy way out here, but it's all the above of what you said. Because I think we get kids that are so young, that are 2-0, 3-0 in their pro career, and you'll see them grow. You'll see them move from their little hometown gym or train in the garage. They go to the big school, they fall under the wing of someone. So you'll see guys just, under us that have proved and changed vastly over, the 2 years or whatever doing it. So, yeah, you want to look for a little bit of that. Obviously, we're in the entertainment business. It's sports entertainment. So I need exciting fights and fighters. But for me, if you get talented people that have a good base in martial arts, the sport is dynamic. You can't rely on one fighter to go and do it. The sport is dynamic. You get good young athletes that are training and improving, and you match them up. For the most part, the dynamics of the sport are going to, put on the show. And lastly to that, I would say, a big thing that's a head start is a pedigree. Kid that was notable in the jiu-jitsu scene that turns in there. A Chris Holdsworth, who every other weekend was going out and strangling guys in jiu-jitsu. I'm like, well, he's going to have an advantage in grappling over a lot, or a substantial college wrestler, or whatever, maybe a Muay Thai champion that comes in there. Someone that not only has a pedigree to build on, but they have a foundation where they've learned one aspect to add in others. As long as they're open-minded, it's, learning to learn. So that's another good thing that you look for, is when someone has that pedigree.
LFA is unique in that it understands it has a lane for success to be like a feeder league to the UFC and some of these even bigger organizations. In finding talent, do you have to be less open-minded to veterans that have traveled around the world, so you can focus on finding that next star and developing the reputation as the home for the future of the UFC, future of the world, future of MMA? Or are veterans hugely important as a litmus test for young fighters in LFA and also just to draw on a given card in a given town because they have name value?
Sure. Yeah, it's a bit of both. You have to find that balance. Some kids that they just maybe got their UFC call a little too early, and they got their 2 or 3 fights, and they can get built back and go. Right. We've had numerous guys that have done that and had that success to go. It's a show to the UFC, for example, to go, hey, you guys cut me. Maybe I wasn't ready. I improved. And not only that, I went out there, and all the guys that were supposedly the next prospect to go, I beat all them. So I'm back to that list, Christos Giagos is one that kind of sticks out to me like that. There's quite a few others that have gone and done. They've got that second chance at the UFC. So yeah, it's important. I mean, we're based in the United States, and I don't have some of the abilities of some of the bigger promotions. So obviously, the most of our talent, comes here. But I think you're seeing with the UFC and Bellator based here, and a lot of other big gyms and promotions, that a lot of talent kind of knows if they come here to train, that's a good look for them to get to the United States and to hit these gyms up to do it. So we get international talent, but we can also, with just our relationships, some guys just call and go, new guys at the gym, check them out. And that's what we do.
Now, let's talk about another key element of your job with LFA and booking events, which fascinates me in a great deal. What are your personal theories on matchmaking an event? Is the idea always to have an action kind of fight, action-packed show, a very high action and exciting kind of fights? Is it about development like we're talking about? Because, you have these talents coming in, you're roughing out the edges to send them on to the UFC. Or is that the difficulty in the job? Because you have to try and balance both. You got to be exciting because you're putting on a TV show and then you're developing talent.
Yeah. So you need some of those. You go to a market and yeah, we want to have a title fight and we want our title, that belt goes around your waist. We want that to be the golden ticket to the UFC or wherever that fighter decides to go. We want that. But obviously, when you're in some of these markets, I've got to put on, something that speaks to those people, that they might come and see their buddy. They might watch that title fight. What else is going to go? So you look at who's the best in the region. One thing we'll often do is we'll get the kid that's, oh, no one will fight me. No one will fight me. Well, in that region, but that's where we bring in the guy that, beat up everyone in California. And now he's flying to wherever it might be to take on that guy. So we can make those fights. We can get the guys, fights. And in development, you got to take your time. I mean, a lot of these kids, you got to protect the fighters from themselves. Most of the coaches and managers, work well with us to go, listen, my guy's 3-0. He doesn't need to fight your 8-1 guy. No matter what he's posting on Twitter or whatever, like, we're all on the same page. So you don't want to set someone up for failure, but you also want to make sure they're testing and improving. You improve by the tough challenges and getting past those. So yeah, it's finding a balance and a little bit of all that.
How do you map out a card? Do you have a main event and then you build down from there? What makes, one fight a co-main event instead of another compared to other fights? And is the toughest part deciding who is on the broadcast and those that are maybe on the prelims that don't get as much wide broadcast TV time? Is that maybe one of the toughest things? I got to leave this guy off, but, and then you're interacting with the fighters why am I not on the main card?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the good problem is talent out there. In most of the markets we go to, it's talent, and it's kids we have under contract and are dying to fight. So the biggest problem, and I think my partners would agree, is I'm just man, there's just not enough spots to do it. And so in some of the markets when you go to, they're talent rich, or we really owe a kid, and so you got to navigate through that. And the one thing I've liked about MMA, and I think a lot of promoters have touched on it, and it is the show of it. In the UFC, back when they used to rock Mandalay Bay back here, you'd go to the show starting at 7 p.m. and everyone is in their seats. And that still follows through, fairly to this day. People are kind of there. They paid their ticket money, or they're tuning in to watch a show. So you can't have 4 stinker fights and then get to your ones. People are going to start logging off. Yeah. So yeah, there's a reason why our first fight on the broadcast is usually high action, a banger. I try to look at those styles to go, what's gonna set the pace for the night, and that's been an important thing for us.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I was actually going to ask about something like that, because wrestling does the same kind of thing, and where they have an exciting fight to start the show and set the tone. So I'm glad you told me that. But going back to something you kind of talked about before, now in the big promotions, you will see different ways of booking young talent. Some just get absolutely thrown to the wolves, while others seemingly get groomed for greatness and protected kind of in ways. What is your view on stuff like that? Is that matchmaking inconsistency, or from all your experience, does it really matter on the fighter? Can some guys kind of just be thrown to the wolves and really test it right away, and then do some guys kind of need to slowly be brought along?
Yeah, some of those situations, happen. It might not even be the matchmaker. It might be the coaches and the fighter and them saying, this guy's ready and he's ready to take over the world, and he gets fast-tracked. And, so I think it's a combination of all the above. At my level, at least I can speak to this level, is I can't solely make a fight. I need, two fighters to agree, and then they have coaches and teams and all that. So there is something to that where everyone involved is, agreed to that fight. And I'm pretty sure every fighter that's taken that fight believes, hey, this guy's dangerous. He has ways to beat us, but we believe we can win. But yeah, we get a lot of young kids that, they made their pro debut a year ago. They're 3-0. Take your time. Do you want to get to the UFC? And Ed says this all the time. Do you want to get to the UFC or do you want to stay to the UFC? What's your goal? Do you want to, stay there and be, on retention and get to your third and fourth contract? That's the thing is, the hurry game, and that's where, not only us as a promoter, but I think good managers, good coaches, these people that really have these kids' ears to go low and slow. You still have some improvement. I know you think you're the man, but let's slow it down. So it takes a village, for the kids that really make it. I think it truly, takes a village.
As the sport continues to come along, you've been a part of it for so long. Is something like that an instance where you kind of need to save a fighter from themselves, not push them too hard, let them evolve in a more organic way? Has it become less of an issue as more management, more coaches, as the industry gets smarter and smarter further along? There's a history. Is it become less of a thing, or even still to this day, on occasion, you got to kind of make the right decision in the best interest of the fighter and not push them too far?
Yeah, it has. You look at a show like the Contender Series that didn't exist a couple of years ago, and now you're seeing guys that are fresh new faces, and that's what the UFC is looking for. But you go on there, you put on a performance, and that's it. Dana calls your name, and none of those guys are saying no. So, I think that's important. Have we personally had athletes that said we've had an invitation, or we know there's a short notice opening, they're interested in us, we're just not ready yet. For us, we kind of have to support it either way. Our goal is to send people off to the next level, and if they say I'm going and I'm ready, I don't really have a say in that. We're going to release them and go. And maybe if they're not ready, then we can talk about what we spoke about earlier. They come back to us and we go, hey, that was a great experience. Let's build from it and see if you can build your way back. And we've proven to do that, time and time again with different athletes over the years.
When you find talent that this he or she are a legit true blue chipper, a building block who will be in the UFC or Bellator champion or whatever, is there ever frustration like, damn, I found this person that could be a huge star for us in LFA, but in the end they they're not going to stay? Or is that the fun of it, to have spotted, to have given that kind of a talent a bigger platform and build their brand and have really been there before anyone else was wise to how good this fighter was?
Yeah, we've had that. We have some, that we're always happy for them, but some that are, sad to see go. They're a big part of certain markets we've been in, and certainly. But that's what we say we do. We have to do it. So if they get the call and they want to go, congratulations. My job is to have, the other guy in the queue. Okay, I just lost one of my top 145ers. Who's that up and comer? So you can't just focus on the top of the card. You've got to focus on the bottom of the card. I tell the fighters, your goal should be, if you make your pro debut, is to get to that swing bout. That's the pro fight before we go, to TV. If you're on the pro undercard, get that win. Your goal should be to kick off the main broadcast, and then you work your way up there. If your goal is to go to the next level, earn your way to a main event, win that main event, and we'll open the door for you and let you go on your way. So that should be the goal, is to tier up the card. And we've had that. We've had kids that have fought for us as an amateur that have main evented, and that's kind of always been, a goal that we tell them, work your way up the card.
For someone that's been a part of the business for so long, why do you think, in a way, it took this long for promotions to kind of, like I mentioned earlier, find their lane and say, you know what? I'm not going to try to build this from the ground up and somehow, catch up to the UFC and be on the UFC's level, and just say, you know what, there's a niche that can fit, that fighters really need in terms of development and getting to that stage, and then we're gonna fill that niche. Not there's been a lot of promotion that haven't done that for a long, for the majority of the history of the sport. Why do you think that is?
Sure.
And also, why do you think why? Tell the person who doesn't understand that why it is so valuable for the fighters, for the management, for everybody involved to have that thing like, oh, if I get to LFA, I can get to the UFC instead of trying to be a part and being billed and maybe getting into a bad contract for a promotion that has the ill-informed hope that they think they're going to contend with the UFC one day.
Sure. Uh, yeah, you can't catch a freight train on a bicycle. I mean, these, yeah, you have billion-dollar companies that have been doing it, and they have the experience and the money behind it. Uh, there's part one, but bigger than that, part two. I really feel that we found like you know, the UFC is not. I mean, outside of the rare occasion of Brock Lesnar or whoever, they're not grabbing the 2-0, the 3-0. They need
Yeah.
people that are experienced and going. And these people don't, they don't drop out of the clouds. They need to be there. They need to be, developed. And to that, not only the fighting of, I think it helps a young fighter to, you win your bout and you talk with Pat a couple minutes, that experience, have a little mic time, a little bit
Yeah.
of, take your mouthpiece out and talk. If you're doing this right, you're going to be talking to Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
down the road too. So, and even some of the media and stuff, Ryan from our team is always getting these guys, hey, do this interview, do this, do that. You got to get over your nerves. If you're going to go to the next level, you don't want to send out a tweet. You don't want to send out a tweet for us. You don't think the next level wants you promoting not only the events, but yourself as a brand.
Yeah.
So it's really teaching from all aspects of a profession. You're a professional athlete. Learn the profession.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's more than just training really, really hard. For the most part.
We are all dealing with this coronavirus pandemic together. And since you head up talent relations for the promotion, what has the communication with fighters been like? Are they very understanding of the situation and being patient? Are some fighters having financial concerns and need to get a fight soon? Because, many fans don't really realize that so many fighters, especially on that level, they have side jobs. They have regular jobs, and those jobs may be closed right now. Have you dealt with anybody that's in a tough spot, or is everybody seem okay for now?
It's not like there's a lot of opportunities, so it's not, well, should I take this opportunity, or are you guys coming back? I mean, everyone's kind of in the same boat of being, on lockdown. And I think what the UFC is going to have is, with some of their cancellations and postponements, is they're going to put on some awesome cards. As the fans, we're going to win on that. But I think they're going to have a backlog of athletes that are going, when this opens up, we're ready. So yeah, to that, I think, as the LFA, we have plans in place, for what we plan to do, in the short term. But yeah, to go back to the cancellations and all that, we as a company just dealt with this late last year. We had a fallout with a network partner, and I had to get on the phone and give a lot of bad news. I was talking to my partner Sven. I said, dude, I'm just sick of picking up the phone and giving people bad news. A couple of months later, then we had to do it again. But overall, is from fighters and coaches, other than hey, any news, hey, whatever. I mean, it's been overall positive. I think everyone knows this isn't really anyone's fault. We're all kind of in the same boat. And moreover, I just, some of the emails and stuff I've gotten, when you tell a kid your fight's off and I don't know when you're going to fight again, and the messages back aren't blaming and angry. They're, okay, I hope you and your family are well, and I'll be ready, and like very positive. So that's a great thing about martial arts and MMA and the trainings. Most of these kids are humble and they get it. And when we get back, we're going to be cranking. And when guys are ready, they're going to get their fights, and we'll just have a busier end of this year.
How have you kept busy with the stay-at-home stuff going on? I talked to Ed Suarez a few weeks ago. He was still very busy. I've talked to a couple other CEOs and stuff like that for promotions, even though they're not doing any shows. They're still busy, very busy. How has been your days been like? Still very busy, and have you been able to catch up on those hobbies and activities neglected because you're not enough time at home?
When it first hit, I was kind of following off that. I mean, I think I just kind of ate a whole bunch and stared out a window, and then you kind of like started to put it back together and see. I mean, it's like I have two small children, 3 and 5 years old, so I've been at home and having a ton of time with them. But their mom has to work every day, so I've been we've really created a schedule. I talk with the LFA team daily. I've talked to Ed. I'm not joking, every day since this all began. And yeah, we've been coming up with plans and backup plans, and we have ideas. So it's been a good balance of some leisure time at home, with my kids. I travel a lot, so that's awesome. But then also forward thinking. As a company, we had stuff in the works, that we're already, implementing for this year and for next year. And so I think this situation just might fast track some of that, and I think we're going to be fine. I think we're down for a little bit now, but I think we're going to be fine.
And I wanted to get your thoughts on this because Bellator has kind of gone public talking about this is their plan. When I talked to Ed, he said this might be an idea. When I talked to Campbell McLaren to come out to Americas, also on the idea of doing studio shows, just closed set studio shows. And Campbell was telling me they were talking about their partner in Mexico, the TV broadcast partner doing it in Mexico City and stuff like that. And that seems like an idea that makes a lot of sense, a lot of affordable options, and less people. What are your thoughts on that? Being because you guys weren't one of those promotions that got in one of those empty arena, no closed door kind of events. What are your thoughts on possibly doing an LFA from a studio, almost like an old '80s, wrestling show kind of vibe? Are you interested, excited for that possibility?
I would be, just because I think it's going to be the new reality, for a little while. So it's something we've discussed and gone down that road. Among them, a lot of plans. A lot of plans of what we're trying to do to get this back on track, but we just don't want to announce a bunch of dates and have to postpone them again. So we're keeping an eye on everything. We're talking with states and athletic commissions and venues, and again, we got plans and backup plans, but we don't have some of the resources of some of the these other gigantic companies. So we just have to take a little bit slower path, but we're working plans and backup plans.